classified briefings from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Secretary of State Marco Rubio about the military strikes on alleged drug boats. This comes as the U.S. carried out strikes yesterday against 3 more boats believed to have been trafficking drugs in the Eastern Pacific. 8 people were killed. Hegseth faces bipartisan scrutiny over whether the strikes were legal. He hasn't said if he'll release the full unedited video of the controversial September 2nd attack in the Caribbean.
Joining us now, Republican Congressman Don Bacon of Nebraska. He serves on the Armed Services Committee, and he is also a U.S. Air Force veteran. Congressman, thanks very much for joining us.
Great to be here.
Thanks for your service. Appreciate it very much. We know only a select group of lawmakers has actually seen the video of that September 2nd strike attack. Have you seen it, and do you expect Secretaries Hegseth and Rubio will provide it to all members of Congress, perhaps later today?
I have not seen it yet. I know the chairman of our Armed Services Committee has, and the ranking member. Also, the chairman of the ranking member of the Intelligence Committee, a few others saw it. Now, after this interview, I'm going to go and listen to the secret briefing that the Secretary of Defense and Secretary of State is going to give. So I look forward to hearing more. You know, I generally am supportive, but I'd like to know about the intelligence. Well, how do we know these boats are carrying the drugs that they're saying that is? I'd like to hear more about the legal justification, but I think all of our families have been touched by death from overdoses or whatever it may be. And I'm sympathetic, but we should make sure we're doing this right. That's what we do in Congress. We have oversight. And in the end, he should come in and they should ask for authorization.
You think you'll see that video later today?
I hope so, but I really don't know.
Right.
I'll be there. I'll let you know.
Well, you've been pretty outspoken. I mean, you have criticized Secretary Hegseth. You have questioned his leadership at the Pentagon, particularly since the news broke that he was using Signal for war plans. Have you sensed a growing frustration, though, among your Republican colleagues in Congress with Hegseth now over these boat strikes and the handling of them?
I think, to a degree, yes. I wish that the administration would come to Congress, lay out their case, and ask for authorization. If you're just going to do it without our authorization, you're going to get pushback. And I think it's constitutional. They should come and make their case. We don't know what they're doing with Venezuela at large. I mean, they've come and made no case what they're doing, what's the mission. So I hope to hear some of that today as well. But my frustrations with the Secretary of Defense started before he was confirmed. But once he got confirmed, I thought, well, let's give him a fair chance. And he hit Signalgate, and he took no responsibility. He should have said, I made a mistake, my fault. Instead, he tried to blame everybody else. I'm the 5-time commander in the Air Force. That doesn't work. You got to take responsibility. And then there's been other issues. Some of the policies on getting the media out of the Pentagon, or all the rules of engagement they put on the media in the Pentagon. I thought that was unnecessary and it's not healthy. And then they put rules on the military members, their engagement with Congress. So I have a Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha area, and they can't talk to me unless I run through the Pentagon first. And everybody has that problem. I don't think that's right. But I'm more concerned about the attitudes towards NATO, Ukraine. I don't see leadership there that takes our alliance. They don't value the alliance the way they should. We've had a 75-year history with NATO, and it's worked. And so I think these guys have undercut our alliance, and I think that for the most part, have not been good with Ukraine. And so that's probably the bigger concern I have.
You've got a lot of concerns, and I know in the past you thought that Hegseth should either be forced out or resign, right?
Yes, if I was the hiring guy for the secretary, I wouldn't keep him.
Let him go.
I don't like to say that, but the Signalgate tells you everything you need to know. He did something wrong, and people make mistakes.
And let's just remind our viewers that in Signalgate, he was having very sensitive, highly classified details that potentially could endanger U.S. troops on a phone conversation, including with a journalist and several people who had no security clearances whatsoever. That could endanger.
2 hours before the mission, so when the F-18s are taken off, when they're going to hit their targets in Yemen. And it's on an unclassified application on an unclassified phone, of which we know, I guarantee I'll bet my life savings, China and Russia monitor. And if they would have forwarded that information to Yemen, it could have undermined the safety for our air crew.
You served in the Air Force, so you know what it's like. And those pilots could have been endangered.
I'm a signals intelligence officer, so I'm way attuned to this problem. But here's the thing. He denied it being a problem afterwards. That's what bothers me. Everybody makes a mistake. But when you don't take responsibility, don't own up to it, you blame the media, I think that's worse than the actual mistake.
Good point.
All right, I'm going to ask you about something else. We are learning more about the deaths of the legendary actor and director Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle, allegedly at the hands of their son. You were among several Republicans who criticized President Trump's response, suggesting Reiner's death stemmed from, quote, Trump derangement syndrome. I want to play what Speaker Mike Johnson said. Let's watch.
Mr. Speaker, do you condemn Trump's post about Rob Reiner?
What are your thoughts about what President Trump said about Rob Reiner at his press conference today?
I don't do ongoing commentary about everything that's said by everybody in government every day.
We are the President of the United States.
We're trying to bring down healthcare costs for the American people. They're very important votes, very important issues, and that's what we're focused
A lot
on.
of your members are criticizing him.
I gave commentary this morning, and you all heard it.
Is that an acceptable response from the leader of House Republicans?
The speaker's in a tough spot, and he is right. The president gives plenty of ammo out there for people to critique. He has a lack of self-control and not enough restraint on some of the things he says, and his comments on Reiner are case in point. And you got a 3-seat majority. I understand the speaker's in a tough spot, but we should have moral clarity here. What the president said was wrong, and you got to have a little bit of decency. Here's a guy that was murdered, stabbed to death, his throat slit, his wife, probably by his son. We don't know for sure. That's a very sad thing, and to gloat over it and make the comments that the president said, it's not presidential. And I just think there's a big yearning in our country right now for more decency, self-control, some restraint, and a little more normalcy. And what we saw with that response, it's not an appropriate comment from a president.
We've heard that same sentiment from other Republicans who are leaving soon. Marjorie Taylor Greene, for one, has been on our show saying the same thing. Do you think Republicans are just scared that Trump is going to go after them if they speak out and say the
Well,
truth?
there is some of that. Now, a lot of people think as I'm getting out, I'm saying this. I've been this way.
You
I think
have.
all along.
We had
So-
you on the show too before you announced that you were
He
leaving
came out to our
Congress.
district and campaigned against me in 2022, and I just want to put that on the record. But I do think people are scared that they're afraid of primaries and they're afraid of a little bit of the retribution. But I do think the majority of Americans want normalcy and decency, and I think the president needs that feedback. If you're just going to be a yes man to him, he's going to go to his worst. He's just going to keep doing what he's doing and maybe more of it. If you push back, I think it's helpful. I think he needs to know that there's a lot of Republicans who do not appreciate these kind of comments. I also think he needs feedback on tariffs. He lives in a bubble on the tariff things, being told all the time everything's all right, but we know from the economic numbers today they're not. He needs feedback on Ukraine. I try to remind him. Chamberlain did a lot of things that you're doing in 1938, and it didn't work. You got to stand up to a strong man like Putin, and you can't let a guy bully you or bully his neighbors. We got to stand up to that. So I think the feedback's good for him. I think if we can help him be a better president, if we're honest.
It's interesting. President Trump's White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, I assume you've met her, you know her. She told Vanity Fair in a newly released interview that her boss, quote, we're talking about the president, quoting her, has an alcoholic's personality, governing with a, quote, view that there's nothing he can't do. President Trump famously does not drink, and Wiles herself grew up with an alcoholic father. Wiles is now calling this a hit piece. How do you respond to that long interview she gave to Vanity Fair?
I didn't see that clip. I saw some other ones about Ukraine that she said about the president. Again, I think it's helpful. If we come back and say, Mr. President, we disagree, he could have had a much better tariff policy if he would have come to the Congress. There's some tariffs I would have supported, but tariffs against 80 countries, for example.
It's really
is
hurting
outrage.
agriculture
It's
in
hurting
Nebraska.
agriculture,
to this
man.
day.
And so he would be better off if more people spoke up, gave him honest feedback, and it would stop him from doing some of the zany things out there that he does. And this comments on Mr. Reiner, they were just ugly. And we're better than that. And okay, I could expect it from some people. They're only at a bar or something, but not the president of the United States, right? We expect better.
But how hard is it for a Republican to speak the truth, push back against Trump, and actually stay in office and not be primaried and not be, the subject of the MAGA machine online? And I mean,
I've had 4 primaries, and the last 2 times from the right, there was a lot of focus. I wasn't loyal enough to Trump. I would have probably not run again earlier because there's other things I want to do in life. But I wanted to prove a point in our district that the majority supports common sense, decency, Reagan conservatism. And so I stayed in an extra run or two just to prove I don't know what you want to call them, the far right or the Trump loyalists that he can do no wrong and that crowd. And I wanted to run just to prove a point that the majority want decency and more of a Reagan Republican ideology. And so I've done it, five times is enough.
You're ready.
I'm ready for doing something else.
All right. Well, thank you for all of your service, Congressman Don Bacon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it very, very much.
Coming up here.